I just can't stop making these videos. It's funny how I do the zero guard buzz cut and just, man, all these comments flooding in, all these ideas flooding in. I'm so glad I did this. You know, just like I've said this before, one of the reasons Marvel makes better movies than DC now is Marvel understands one of the theories to making a great movie is that no matter how familiar we are with the superhero, he needs to evolve by the end of that movie. You know, Batman and Superman don't do that in their newer movies. Like Batman versus Superman, you know, Justice League, you don't see them evolving. Wonder Woman was done right because she absolutely evolved from the beginning to the end. But Batman and Superman in recent movies, they don't evolve. But again, Thor, Ragnarok, prime, easy example of how even a familiar character evolves and has that dynamic change by the end of the movie. With that being said, I definitely need to, we need to talk about this. So I made that video just a few days ago before this was filmed, back when I still had my hair. The video was called, "We Don't Have Bald Superheroes, We Have Bald Supervillains." Our great friend Farley Tokley had this to say, quote, "It's Nick, the protective shell, mild-mannered hair loss psychiatrist by day. By night he dons his perfectly coiffed hair helmet from which his power is derived, his utility belt packed with a comb, scissors, straight razor, hairspray, pomade, and rosemary Rogaine." Man, I love that. I got to start using that. Rosemary Rogaine. That's awesome. "Beware the Norwood 1 villains who belittle and condescend us, Norwood 3s. Change your evil ways or the protective shell will throw a balding on you. Then you'll be the one glued to YouTube seeking advice for male pattern hair loss. Seacrest out." End quote. And I love all of that. I even love the Seacrest out because for some reason I keep referring to Ryan Seacrest as, I think because like in my mind, everyone knows who he is. And he is this perception of like traditional, perfect Hollywood good looking guy. He's got the perfect hair, the perfect hairline, perfect teeth, perfect tan, which is maybe from tanning bed, but either way, perfect suit, you know. He's an easy person to that I can identify with as traditionally Hollywood good looking, but of course, as I keep reminding us all, that is now changing, often in thanks to our action stars balding. Maybe, especially I think it all started with Bruce Willis in the original Die Hard, one of the best Christmas movies ever made. I wish it was on Netflix. I feel like watching it right now, the original Die Hard. So it is interesting because I guess I've been talking about this a lot. Right before I shot this video, I talked about how I have this tendency to identify with villains and have this respect to villains, sometimes even more so than the superhero themselves. Sometimes just the fact that they have better communication and leadership skills than the hero. Sometimes the hero ends up making a bigger mess than what the villain does. I don't know. So I think it's a little bit of a toss-up sometimes for me. But as I'm looking at other comments on the same video, Christian Rivera says, quote, "He's a bald professional hero." And then we have on here too, Harry Q Ball said, "In a few weeks, you'll be the first bald superhero, won't you?" Which, of course, that time is now. In which Maxwell Smart says, "Nick Shell, baldy man, saves the follically challenged." End quote. So you can kind of see a theme. Several comments have come in like that. And I definitely just wanted to address that. In all seriousness, I think there's definitely some truth in what's being said here. As far as a bald superhero, maybe what we need to learn from this is that we don't need to look to Marvel or DC for our balding superhero. If what you guys are trying to say is you're wanting to elect me as the official true balding superhero of YouTube, then I will happily accept that role. Now, of course, a lot of people will argue whether or not I'm actually balding, because this is a V and this isn't exactly round yet, and I'm not exactly Norwood 3 and almost 37 years old. But either way, what matters more is the psychology that goes on. And I think a lot of what I do is I shift your perception of how people view you and how they judge you. And I remind you that you're constantly being judged by other people. in ways that do matter, but hair's not one of them. And so many people they lose track on trying to look like Ryan Seacrest, when really people would much rather you look like Bruce Willis and be in charge and confident and someone they can depend on than being Ryan Seacrest in the good-looking suit. You know, I think that's definitely one of my superpowers. Man, I love talking about this, and we need to keep talking more about this. In closing, though, here's what I would want to say. I know I've said it before, but my number one superpower as your bald superhero, and hey, I guess right now I'm bald by choice, right? With the zero guard, even if I can't naturally be truly bald, I'm bald by choice. So by default, I am the true, real life bald superhero of YouTube. And my major superpower is my ability to not let other people emotionally affect me, because it is a choice. You get to decide who offends you. Today, I did it. I drove on the interstate. I drove to Nashville. I was at a red light, and I couldn't go because people, like, you know, you can turn on red, you know, if nothing's coming. Well, stuff was coming. I, being front in line, could see that stuff was coming. I couldn't go, all right? Well, finally, when it cleared, I turned right on red, which was the right thing to do when finally there was a break. It was enough of a break where I could do that. The moment I did, the car behind me, they honked their horn at me because I didn't go sooner. However, I had a perspective. I could see that it wasn't going to be safe until the moment I actually did it. Now, maybe 3 years ago, I would have thought about it for 5 minutes after. Oh no, but I'm a good person. But see, I have a superpower now, and that is, I don't care about that. So I ruined their day. What a moron they are if I caused their blood pressure to go up because I didn't turn into an oncoming car that could have gotten me in an accident. You know, so many people give power over their emotions, and as long as they do that, it's always going to be connected to insecurity that you have with hair loss. It's the same reason why guys that are 23 have no hair on top but are not bothered by it. It's that superhero ability that once you realize, I can control this, therefore I can control how I feel about my hair or my lack of hair. I can control this. See, that's my superpower. And I keep throwing it at you for free, saying, please take it. Please be like me by doing this thing and not allowing people to insult you or offend you. Especially in a culture where people are so easily offended by anything, and then it makes news on Twitter. Who got offended today? Somebody got offended. You know, as men, we should be the opposite of that. I am the opposite of that. I don't get insulted or offended. It's part of my masculine identity to not be offended. So I'm inviting you to look, my superhero power, anyone can have it. Anyone can choose it, but most people don't. Usually most people, when they hear me talking about this stuff, they've already tuned me out and stopped watching the video because it's not feeding their immediate need for me to talk about hair. And it's all about the psychology inside this balding skull, right? So that's my superpower. That's really the fundamental foundation of what I talk about. Perhaps in another video we could try to figure out, well, doesn't every superhero have their weakness? You know, obviously the most well-known one is Superman with kryptonite. And actually I was reading an article explaining why that is his arbitrary weakness. And basically the writers, when they were creating Superman, they're like, well, this guy's too perfect. There's got to be something wrong with him. So let's just say he's allergic to this thing on this different planet. And it works. But I don't know. I wonder what my weakness is. I don't know. So you can tell me in the comments, as your official elected balding superhero of YouTube, what is my weakness? And then I can make a video sorting that out. If it's not, I'll tell you why it's not. But if it is, I'll say, yeah, you're right. Thank you for opening my mind. Because as your balding superhero of YouTube, I'm not perfect. No superhero is. What is my weakness? What is my weakness? What is my weakness?